All right, you're recording, Steve. All right, we've got a meeting for today, October 19th. First agenda item is approve the minutes of the regular meeting last month.
So moved.
Second that.
Okay, any corrections? All in favor? Okay. Tanya?
All right, metered sales are up 3.5% year-to-date, leaving revenues favorable, $90,000. The revenues are helping offset the variance in expenses, which is now up to $177,000. Capital spent year-to-date is $497,000, and September ended with $3 million cash on hand. Any questions?
So we still not seeing any move in that overall expenses. When we move capital into the payroll, doesn't affect that. We're looking for a pretty extensive overage in our expenses.
We are, yeah, we've been carrying that pretty much. We kind of expected that to flip a little bit when the capital started, but it hasn't as much as we expected.
So it's just there'll be no hope of moving some capital stuff into that to lower that number.
It's charged as we do it, so there's no moving money.
There's still more projects to go.
Yep.
Even though there'll still be some more charges to that.
Yeah.
We still have some more projects.
Okay, anybody else? All right. All in favor of accepting the financial report? Okay. And ratify the payment of bills.
I'd like to move that we ratify the payment
Okay.
of bills.
Second.
Okay. Bob, did you get everything answered?
Yes, I
that you
did. Between, yep, Mike and Tanya, all taken care of.
Anybody else have any other questions on the bills?
Thank you.
Okay. So, good. Let's, all in favor of ratifying the payment of bills? Okay. Public comment?
I'm just here to listen.
Okay. Well, I hate to tell you, but we are executive session and we'll be in for at least an hour.
Oh.
Because we have a second one we're gonna have to add in for legal representation, so it's not on the agenda.
You're copying this, can I get, once you get to new, old business and new?
It's on the website, you can watch all of them.
I can watch it all?
Yep.
And, okay,
We post about within a couple of days after the meeting.
Before Friday, we'll have it up.
okay, because I was interested.
You can watch all the old ones and, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize you did the things, because I was looking at the listening for the Alternative Water Source Committee and while I downloaded the water quality, so.
Okay, yeah, that's just that's the alternate water source.
Yep.
In the past, there's been a study done for wells out, Dan, where are those wells?
You're talking about the
The one that was there was too much stuff.
Iron?
Too much iron or something.
It's
and
along the
so,
southern shore of
yeah,
Lake Auburn.
we don't have anything specific to talk about there. It's just a subject that we put on the agenda that is where we don't have any alternate wet water source. So
Okay,
that's
well,
the
I was
reason it's
looking
on
at
there.
that and I thought, well, I'd
Yeah.
like to listen to that.
There's nothing actually specific that we're going to talk about with that, I don't
I
think.
think the specifics was the committee was supposed to come back to us this meeting with a charge.
And that's what I read.
Okay,
That was in the minutes too.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I
Does
saw.
anybody have anything specific to that at this point? Have you guys had a chance to meet?
No, we're getting close to it though.
Okay. There's not much substance to that one, Pam.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just looked at what it
Next meeting
said
for
and I
sure.
thought,
Yeah,
I thought, oh, well, I should be here.
The source that we found was very high in iron.
Okay,
yeah. So I apologize, but it's going to be 2 very long executive sessions.
okay, well, I just am interested in,
Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming.
okay, well, at least I sold 3
Thanks,
books
Ben,
to
you
the
did.
historic.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a win. So what, we need to have somebody suspend the rules, and we need to add an additional executive session to discuss a legal matter.
So
So
we have one.
that's
Legal
to
matter.
discuss a personal matter.
Well, the
Next
next
one.
one is-
There's 2 in there.
Oh, the legal matter, okay.
Yep.
Can we have a motion to flip-flop those 2 then? We need 5 to be 7 and 7 to be 5.
I'll make that motion that we suspend the rules and take out of order item number 7, executive session in accordance with 1 MSRA Final 4056E.
To discuss a legal matter.
To
To discuss a legal matter, good. All in favor? Okay, and we are gonna we are in executive session. Are all in favor of moving to executive session? I think I can just declare us in, but we'll just declare us in, okay.
Okay, you're back on.
All right, we are out of first executive session. We are now all in favor of moving. We have a executive session in accordance with MRSA 405E to discuss, 405-6A to discuss a personnel matter. All in favor? All right, and we are in executive session.
All right, you're recording.
Okay. So, we have no follow-up action on any of our executive sessions, so we are moving to activity report and project update, Mr. Braun.
All right, your activity reports, we have been busy on projects. We did wrap up Willow Street, it's for paving that today. We did get Ash Street complete. We're starting on Hotel Road next week. We're going to be abandoning a main over there, so we're still plugging along with projects.
Where is that on Hotel Road?
So we are going to be basically from Rodman Road. Next year, they're going to be milling and filling all of Hotel Road.
Okay.
So we have an old main on one side of the road, and we have a brand new main on the other, but all the services are tied to the old main. So we're connecting the services to the new main and abandoning the old pipe.
From Robin Road to,
Basically out to Lewiston Junction, they're going to be milling, filling all that, but we're going to be going to basically Merrill Road.
okay.
That's where the old main
There'll be
is.
some construction nightmares there, some traffic nightmares for a while.
Fortunately, a lot of the service work, we're going to be in the shoulder and out of the road. We won't be digging the road up. So it's a good project because it's not going to cost a ton of money because we're not trenching down the road. So we're doing a lot of service work. So we're going to be out there next, starting the end of this week. Gates, we wrapped up a bunch of the bigger paving projects. That Center Street one was kind of a pain in the butt out by the boat launch. But every final pavement is down there now. We've got all those gates squared away. Services, just kind of some standard stuff there. Nothing, I don't think we had anything.
Any update on what's going on with the Court Street project?
Court Street, yeah, we are going to talk about that in just a second under project update. But
Okay, great.
yeah, we do need to discuss that. Are there any other questions on anything specific in the activity report? Can't think of anything abnormal.
Yeah, very last page, other activities, the very last one. Watershed dump, demo permit for 79
Oh, yeah.
Point of Pine Road. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
So the Watershed Commission bought an old camp, and we're going to be tearing that down and charging the commission for that. We've got the house next door we're going to tear down as well. So I have all the permits in place to do that. I'm just waiting until we can't dig in the road anymore. So we can tear the house down anytime. So there's no urgency to do it right now. We've got both places are secure. So as soon as we can't pave anymore, that'll be a good project.
Septic or a
Yeah,
well?
We've already pumped it and abandoned the septic over there.
That was my next question,
Yep.
thank you.
In the Point of Pine, it's a camp, at the very end of it, kind of off to the right, it's right on the water, it's a camp.
It's off Spring Road. Point of Pine Road goes down in.
That one's, is that the one there's only, that road services that one?
It goes to one house, and the camp is like right next door to the house, and it's the same owner.
Good, yeah, they're right on, basically right on the lake.
It's right on the lake, yep. So yeah, that's that. Project update, I guess I kind of mentioned what we're up to with big projects. The one we definitely wanted to talk about is this 555 Court Street. I feel like this one is, we're going to be discussing this a lot. We're at that point where they would like to have water by Friday. They still haven't put their pumps in. They still haven't submitted a design on the pumps. They did pay us a deposit to do a hydraulic review of the booster station. One of our big concerns has been with this fire pump and the location of this booster station being right at the top of our pressure zone. Our concern is if this pump kicks on and pulls 1,000 to 2,000 gallons a minute of water, is that going to then give a pressure surge and drop the pressure throughout the rest of the system? That's a big concern of ours. So that is underway. We're expecting that work to be done at the end of this week. As long as that comes back and says that there's enough capacity in the main between the tank and that pump that it won't adversely affect everybody else's pressure, then we're gonna be good there. The next thing that we still wanna do is we wanna take their design plans for their booster station, and we would like to submit that and have a peer review done by our engineer to make sure, again, because they want us to own the station, we wanna make sure, is everything up to snuff there? Are all the proper controls? And once that is done, it actually has to be, if we're gonna own it, it has to be approved by the main drinking water program, because that's now a public drinking water facility. So that's why we wanna have, cross the Ts, dot the Is, make sure it's all up to snuff. Because if we send it to them, we don't wanna have it come back and say, no, you can't have these controls, you can't have these pumps, you can have, because it's, public water supply at that point.
Is it advantageous to us to own that pump, or what expenses are gonna be long-term and short-term, and?
Glad you asked that. Let's talk about that. So Tanya and Sid have done a lot of work on this. We've worked on this quite a bit. Obviously, we take on a burden owning these pumps. We're going to have to now, it's a drinking water facility. I've got to check it at least once a week. We've got to pay the electricity bill. There's going to be a generator. We're going to pay generator maintenance, fuel costs, all that stuff. We're going to now be putting money into this in perpetuity if we own it. So very similar to what we did with the Poland Inn booster station, we did projected costs. This is what it's going to cost us. So much like we do on the sewer side of things, where we take a deposit down for taking on ownership of a pump station. In Poland, we just took on a new one, and I think it was somewhere around $64,000 that we took as a deposit, so that it offsets those incurred costs. According to our terms and conditions, which are approved by PUC, we cannot burden existing ratepayers by taking on ownership of this station. Yes, they will be paying water and sewer rates, but those rates are going to be severely offset by the new cost that we incur to take this on. So we have projected some costs. It's kind of difficult to do right now because we don't even have a set of plans. I've seen some breakdowns on what they're going to use for pumps, but I haven't seen controls. I haven't seen.
Who's designing it? Do you know, or
yeah,
is it a company that you are comfortable with? Or?
They've been really good to deal
good.
with. They're good. The pump manufacturer that they've selected is who we bought pumps from in the past.
Okay, good.
So I feel good about it, but I just need to see it.
Right.
Show it to us. Make sure it's okay. So once we have that full set of design, we can really then anticipate, well, what are the costs going to be? Okay, it's this size generator. It's going to be this. But yeah, we are going to have to take a deposit that's going to be part of the agreement. Much like the agreement we had with Poland, we have to
Are we
have
allowed
that in
to
place.
charge like a premium to all those customers for the maintenance of that?
We can't do that. So you want to touch on that?
Yeah, like I said, in our terms and conditions, and we have checked with our legal counsel to look at the PUC regulations, and it's within our jurisdiction to do that, and it is outlined in our approved terms and conditions that we can do that without burdening other ratepayers. I mean, if
So
this
we can
was-
take the down payment piece,
Right.
and that's like in lieu of future costs. Is that
Essentially, yes. What we did is we took 10 years of depreciation on that station, and then added up all the anticipated operation maintenance costs. We put that into one lump sum. We did have a meeting with the owner and presented that. So they have it. So now it's just a matter of making sure that it gets followed up and followed through.
What's going to cost for the pump station?
The total cost for their station? I don't know.
Everything.
I've heard that they're in it for somewhere around $300,000. That they're
So
into
that's
that booster
factored into a
station.
10-year depreciation that we'll have to replace that in 10 years or however long it takes.
We put a depreciation. This can be tweaked, but again, without knowing exactly what the components are, we kind of model this off what we did in Poland, because it's going to be a similar type booster station.
Similar size and
Very
things?
similar.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
building and everything, so when you take that all into account, we have a lump sum depreciation and operation maintenance number of about $145,000.
So-
Pay up front. Yep.
Well, they pay up front, but at the end of 10 years, we'll
But
be looking
that
at
will-
$500,000 to replace
Well,
it.
this is a one-time upfront cost it's basically a cost for perpetual maintenance of it.
Right.
So beyond 10 years, in theory, if those pumps need replacement, that's why that money is being covered in that fashion. Will it truly cover that in perpetuity?
No.
If you look at it, it's probably a good deal for them, but it's kind of a hard pill for them to swallow, right up front. but they need
That's
to
what I mean,
understand the
yeah.
concept of it.
The whole idea, you know, what really bothers me about this whole thing is they approved this project, or they went ahead and built it before they had all their ducks in a row, and now the ratepayer.
Mike has
and us
worked
is
very
gonna take
hard
it
all the way
short.
through the approval process.
Well, I know it's not your
This
fault,
was
I'm saying
coming.
they went ahead and started
Yeah.
building before they had all their permits.
Well, it's frustrating now because we've already started getting calls. We got a call this week. Yeah, you're gonna turn the water on Friday? Turn the water on. No, we need
That's what I
to.
mean.
So, I mean, in the end, the option, I don't mean to cut you off, the options here are, if they agree to this with us, then we'll take on ownership of this station pending all the approvals through the drinking water program and everybody. We'll have the money, the deposit that will cover that maintenance that we're gonna have to do. That'll be ours. Option two, if that doesn't work out, if they're not okay with the deposit, if they don't want to build it to what standards the drinking water program and the engineers say we have to, the other option would be put a meter in that building. And your shut-off valve is here, your meter's in there, it's private.
That's what I'm.
That's what I'm thinking, that's
Yeah.
what he just said, why
But I
do
think-
we even
But
wanna buy
we
into
still
this
need
thing?
assurance that it's not gonna impact our system.
Right, I
We
still need to do
those
the
assurances.
model review.
That we need to do, but why do we even wanna buy into this thing? Why don't we just let them take full responsibility for this pump
And
station?
if something
It's
goes
an- it's an
wrong, you shut
option.
it off.
It is an option, but
I think in the long run, it's gonna be better if we do own it and maintain it, because we're equipped to do it. It's gonna be at the responsibility of a maintenance company, and if something happens to a pump at 3 AM, is a maintenance company gonna be responsive as we are? Probably not. It's kind of a customer service thing. We could leave it all for them, but I don't think that's gonna be a better solution. It is a solution, but I personally, and
unfortunately, if it does go private, I mean, if it does, we put the meter in there. If this is private, you've got your own company. When the water goes out next Tuesday, who they're gonna call? They're gonna call the water.
we're gonna get calls.
You're
And
gonna
you
get,
say,
right.
And then we
talk
say,
to
well,
your
call
property
your
maintenance
maintenance
guy,
guy. Yeah,
there's
it's just
nothing
not-
wrong on our end.
It's not a good, it's not a good solution.
Well, I'm really concerned about, because I know we have to do it in the sewer side with the pumping stations and all that, so I understand that, but it still puts a liability that's beyond what we're getting paid for. In 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, we're gonna be responsible for
In
a
perpetuity.
very expensive
Right.
project that, you know, I
Any
don't know.
advice
that
from the
it's
Maine
fair.
Water Utility Association on this from other projects?
We
in
have
the
reached
state?
out to several other water entities, and they basically, particularly down in like the Kennybunk area, there's a lot more of these because it's a lot flatter, and there's just a lot more subdivisions like this where this
Right.
subdivision is served by this booster station. And they basically are doing the exact same thing that we are. Augusta.
Plan A, you mean?
Right, Plan
We own
A,
it.
yeah.
And it is gonna be, it is gonna be important to get the support of this board for this project, just because of the fact that, and Mike and I have talked about this ad nauseum, all the good places to build in the city of Auburn have already been taken, all the places you can put gravity sewer, all the places that have good water pressure. The only places really left are marginal at best, and they will require sewer pump stations and water
But
booster
the kind of
stations
money
in
they're
a
gonna
lot of
charge
different
for those
places.
rents, the developer should be making sure they're not costing the ratepayer any more money than.
But that's what we're trying to do with this.
But $145,000 doesn't take care of 10 years plus the replacement cost of a new pump.
It's a great deal for them.
I would think that.
I think it is.
I mean, they gotta buy the pump, and then they gotta pay $145,000, but over the course of the longevity of this, 20 years, I mean, 30 years.
Shut off right before.
There in the end, they're gonna work out.
20 years ago, 20 years from now, it'll make great sense to do option A. I honestly think,
them.
for
For them.
them, we're not, I think if you looked at the next 10 years, if they put the meter in the building and take on ownership, okay, you're gonna pay a maintenance company at least 10 grand a year to be on retainer to service the building.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay your electricity, you're gonna pay your generator maintenance, you're gonna pay your fuel for your generator.
Yeah.
That's gonna add up to more than, we're looking for 140 over 10, 140,000, it's gonna be more for them to do
Because
it.
you're talking about 10
Otherwise.
years, if it's 10 grand a month, that's $1.2 million.
No, I was thinking 10 grand a year.
Yeah.
Oh, 10 grand a year.
I think it's gonna cost them between 10 to 15,000 a year to run that on the road.
Is there, we have
Okay.
nothing like this in the,
We have
other than
others,
the one in Poland?
Poland in,
The
and.
Poland.
Yeah, the
How
Poland-
has that worked? How long has that been in service and how has that worked out?
It's been about 6 years now.
And that services Poland customers.
No, it
No?
serves the Poland Inn Resort.
Okay.
So it comes off from our Poland tank, and then it feeds into their lodge, their resort, their golf course, it goes into their private facility and serves everything inside of this
Okay.
2 or 3 different houses. But
So it's only been 6 years. I mean, have we had failures out there with?
Yep, the check valves have failed, we've done maintenance, and we charge them the cost.
All right, so we're charging them the cost, yeah. But it does fail,
So it's over $140,000 over 10 years is a drop in the bucket. Like you said, $10,400 a year is nothing. But so what are they responsible for beyond that? Let's say something breaks down with the pump and it costs $18,000 to replace it.
The way that's set up now, that fee would put the onus on us.
That'd be us.
If the
But
pump fails-
these pumps are $50,000, aren't they?
They're gonna have $300,000 into this building.
Well, that's with the design, everything.
That's why we want
You're
you
not
But
to
how
gonna
much
have
are
that
these
cost
pumps?
again, but-
Like today, how much are these pumps? $50,000?
That one fire pump that they're gonna have is probably in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000
So
for
what-
that one pump.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 other pumps in that building. There'll be 4 pumps in
Now,
that
you
building.
just said the fire pump. Now that responsibility is on us.
Is that us? Is that responsibility for a fire pump on us?
Everything in that building, they want us to take over ownership of that
That's
building.
BS.
Take over
I
that
don't like
building.
that at all.
So if that place catches fire and that pump fails, that's Auburn Water District's
That's crazy.
responsibility.
That's in their
Way.
building, it's not even in the pump station. I mean, it's, wow. This
Well,
is-
at that point, it would be insured by us, and that would be, something like that would be covered.
Yeah.
I guess, one question, Tanya, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that when the Poland agreement was put together, that 10-year figure, wasn't that some, correct me if I'm wrong, an accounting standard, a 10-year depreciation was a standard?
How long you can depreciate.
Yeah, 10 years
Yeah,
depreciation, yeah.
so we,
Will it last 20 years? Well, maybe, but at the end of 20 years, this future board could be responsible for several $100,000 worth of rebuild and repair,
well,
whatever.
that's how it is for, we got about a dozen or more sewer pump stations, they're under the same
That's what I
thing.
mean, I've always had the same problem with all of those too, but.
Right, and the only thing is you have how many customers that you're serving with this one.
There's gonna be 60 in phase 1. Phase 2, which could be subject to change, we've been told that phase 2 is gonna be townhouses. That's the other reason their big push is to make this a public facility. It's because the townhouses will be sold off individually. If they're sold off individually, then we have to own the main that serves them. Because you can't have more than one customer on just one shutoff valve. So if you guys are neighbors and I've just got one valve, one pays the bill, one doesn't. Well, when I shut it off, it kills both of you. So we have to own the main, and we have to have individual valves for each one. So that's why they really want this to be public, because that's phase 2.
Either that or they're paying an HOA fee on for their.
Right.
On top of their
Well, I mean, we've already talked about that we're not reinventing the wheel here down south. These larger developments, they're doing this already. So just based on that, I'm comfortable with what might consider coming up with.
Well, let's see what it is when you come up with it, but I still don't like maybe it has to be more than $145,000.
Well, we do have to tweak that number, because like I said, we just based that upon what we know from our experience with one station.
Yeah.
Once we get this one in, we'll be able to.
Well, we'll have a
really
generator
zero
and
those
generator
numbers.
maintenance. Now, not
There's
the
a-
fuel unless it's
That's
a
all
power
part of it,
outage, but
yeah.
test, whatever the fuel is for the weekly test.
The generator runs once a week. It's gonna be annual maintenance.
Could you add also like a provision for spares to be kept in that facility? Like the extra, whatever fails, these are all in stock, so you don't have to run around nuts, if something
No,
does
that's-
go wrong.
So they did build some redundancy into it. There is gonna be, like I said, 4 pumps in there. There will be only 1 fire pump. There will be 2 larger domestic pumps that I think they go up to 50 gallons a minute, so those are redundant with each other. And then there's 1 smaller jockey pump, which basically runs from 5 to 10 gallons per minute. And that's something that I brought up with them. They were going to only run with the 2 50-gallon per minute pumps, and we have experience. Years ago, this district did the contract ops for New Gloucester. Some of you may remember that, Bob. You probably were here when we did that. That station, they built a very similar system in New Gloucester to feed their municipal system with water. They have booster pumps. And when they designed that, they designed it with these pumps that go 50 gallons a minute. Well, what happens at midnight when just one person is up getting a glass of water at night? Well, this pump that wants to run 50 gallons a minute kicks on, and it's trying to feed 5 gallons a minute out into the system, and it wore those, they replaced the pumps 4 times
Wow.
in the first 2 years because it was burning the pumps up.
Yeah.
So I again, I've been sitting in all these meetings with them. I said, you can't do that. I've seen it, and so sure enough, they talked to the pump guys. He's right. We need a jockey pump, something that runs at a slower rate, and then when that
Needed,
exceeds that capacity, one of the bigger ones kicks on, and then you have redundancy with the 2 of them. So I feel like they're doing a good job designing it, like you asked. I feel like this Haley Ward is a very reputable firm, and they've been responsive to our suggestions. They didn't want to put a generator in either, and well, that's a deal breaker for us, because if the power goes out, then everybody loses water pressure. That becomes cross connection, becomes you start worrying about, you just depressurize the whole apartment building. Did any bacteria get in? That becomes a problem.
No, you're doing the right thing. My feeling is that I don't like a developer that doesn't have all their ducks in a row before they do that. And now we're being held hostage, or however you want to call it, because they got this project that's, we're standing in their way. Well, I just don't think that's right. So
Very unfortunate.
we should try to make sure it's going to be in the best interest of us and our ratepayers before we do anything, even if it means a $300 charge.
And we just wanted to make sure that the board knew this, so there wouldn't be any undue political pressure.
Well,
on
I
this
heard 2
process.
things out there. One person was saying that the developer was going to own it, and I said, no, I thought that the water district was going to own it. I said, well, no, so it's out there, nobody knows who's buying it, who's building it, who's owning it. And so
If we do this, if we own this one, and then there are others.
Setting a precedent.
We're setting a precedence there, too.
well, there's another development going
Well,
on.
we've already done it.
We've already done that with Poland, so we're kind of in that. We're in that.
Well, that was for Poland, another town, that there's,
Yeah.
you could make the
It's the same
case that
premise,
that's a
though.
little, same premise, but, the Auburn ratepayer is not affected by well, I guess Poland pays the same rate fees, right?
It's a smaller scale. Poland's much smaller scale. How many buildings is this pump station going to
He
service?
said it's the same
It's
size.
about the same size. The only difference is Poland does not have a fire pump. But as far as how much domestic water they're going to use, I bet you it's pretty similar.
Really?
Their Poland system has.
Again's got 200
Poland
rooms.
And they have
Yeah,
that
but
big.
aren't they don't have any business probably November through April.
Well, yeah, but all summer long that place is full. He was full this last holiday weekend here in October, the leaf peeping season, and the golf course had a big tournament. They had a wedding, and I mean they've got 3 different. They've got the lodge, the resort, and there's 3 different hotels there, and they're all full.
Bigger than I thought.
So, but again, they're very similar in size.
So you'll be bringing to us, before anything happens, what the proposals are, and we can.
We have drafted the agreement, but the numbers need to be updated when we need a final design. Right now we're guessing at the numbers. They haven't given us a full set of design plans for the building. And then we can
So
really
can
figure
we
out the
say
cost.
concerns are noted, and we're not agreeing to anything, and we're doing just like you are, we're waiting for the agreement so that we can, the design, so we can kind of move on, not beat a dead horse.
We just
Have
want
you
to make sure
received
the
any-
board is aware of the.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate that. It's a great update. Thank you very much.
Yeah, has there been any flack from the city about us with them not working as fast as they'd like or anything?
No.
Nothing? No, okay, good.
The fact is, they didn't get the permits all in line before they started construction, so they really can't say.
And they've already got 2 water hookups.
Okay,
That's all I
so
had on project.
we're moving on. Old business.
Lawsuit? Any updates on that, or
No,
that we can talk about?
no,
Okay.
nothing. I guess we could, if we wanted to do a quick executive session, we'd
Well,
have
if you
to.
feel we need to know something, I mean, otherwise
No, there's
I'm
nothing
waiting.
more than what, there's nothing changed.
Do we want to do and just tell them what's going on? No? Okay.
I don't see any advantage to it at this point.
Okay. Nothing of, no changes that are significant that aren't public knowledge, I think.
We talked about this in the last month of the executive session, didn't we?
I think we did. Nothing's changed since then. New business, Sid.
Yep, water quality update. Got a little blurb in your memo here, if you've read it. The water quality for the last month is kind of held steady. It's not great, but it hasn't moved. We do expect it to get better, colder temperatures, shorter days. But the second disc readings have been around a 3.5. We have had turbidity is holding at about a 1, so we do expect, usually in the middle of November, we have lake turnover, so we're expecting that to happen. When that does, you'll get better oxygen throughout the water column, so we're just,
That's better previous years.
this seems to happen every year. Every year's, well, I should say every year is a little different. We do track things, and we're getting better at trying to track things consistently so we can compare year-to-year results. I will say that this having a turbidity at a steady 1 for as long as we had is kind of a warning sign for us, and we will need to keep an eye on the lake much better next year, because I don't know if this is really
So it
kind of
this
seeding
time
the lake
last
for
year,
next year.
was it 1 or?
I should have, I think the last month I had the turbidity readings, the graph. One thing different this year is it elevated to 1. We didn't have that spike and drop off. It stayed, it came up earlier than previous years, and it's kind of staying at a 1, which is kind of it hasn't really done that in the past, but that's.
It didn't go as high as last year, but it stayed above a 1 a lot longer than it did last year. So it's different.
It's just something to keep an eye on. Next year could be interesting, but it's going to be a new year, and we'll see where it.
Depends on how quick it turns over, is that what you're saying?
Yep, and it depends on a lot on the winter. If we have a long, cold winter, we get ice in early, ice out late. That's going to be a huge factor. But if we have a warm winter, ice doesn't come until the first of the year and goes out by middle of March, we could be in a different situation.
And the cure for that's we can't do another home treatment, or?
Well, one thing we're looking at a couple of things. We have been in touch with Ken Wagner and the team. We don't have a whole bunch of different things in the bag to try, but we do have a number of them we've considered in the past. We've talked about potentially alum dosing stations at some of the inlets. We know that a lot of this stuff from the outside is getting in from our tributaries, so we could site alum dosing stations. One thing we're going to look seriously at as well as that is putting in a deeper intake. This is something that's been considered all along, but it's never kind of risen to the top. We really think that's going to warrant some more investigation. If we could get our intake in like 60 feet of water, that would get us below the thermocline, so we wouldn't be subject to all the things that are going on in the upper water column. So I think that's going to be something to look at, possibly funding that for design this year, so we could have it ready to go if that's something.
How many feet are we at right now?
We're about 20 feet of water is where the intake is. Yep.
Yeah, so what's the diameter? That's a huge intake. What's the diameter?
4-foot diameter.
How much?
4-foot diameter.
Yeah.
It's in about 20 feet of water, but if you've seen the intake, it's a 4-foot diameter pipe. It comes up, and then there's a header on that, and so there are 2 intakes on both sides. And that's about 4 to 5 feet off the bottom. So it's roughly in 15 to 17 feet of water is where the actual intake is.
And there's spots that are deep enough to do that?
You'd have to extend you'd have to extend the intake out probably 1,000 feet or so.
Wow.
To be able to get to that depth of water.
So then would you be looking at moving the buoy?
I think you can still do it within the cordoned off area. It would take some investigation. That was one of the things I wondered, would we have to increase the restricted zone?
So theoretically then, does that, and I apologize if I'm asking a stupid question, but when we get our readings read, it's at the point of intake then? So could that potentially extend any need for, future filter plant or anything like that? I mean, obviously we don't need that now, but is that going to help us extend our waiver by doing that?
It could, because if we're getting, our water intake is from a better part of the lake, yeah, that would certainly help a lot of things, and that could.
1,000 feet of 4-foot pipe is like nothing to save for $60 million filtration.
Your intake pipe is right here right now.
Yeah.
This is your intake pipe. It goes out about 900 feet right now. you'd be looking at going basically in this direction. Your deep hole of your lake is right over here. That's the deepest spot in the lake. Right now, your closed section is, there's Point
Yep.
Pine, it's like right here. So whether you'd have to shift that or not, I don't.
I mean,
have to look at
as
that.
far as I'm concerned, if you had to close the whole thing to get good water, it's our water, I mean, then that's what you do. You can't take a boat out on the, in Worcester, you can't take a boat out on the reservoir in Massachusetts. So,
I don't know if it'll have any impact on that, but the bottom line is if you get colder, cleaner water, it'll save us, save us now, even without a filter plant. It's more consistent water.
I make a motion to engage whatever plan we gotta do to figure out how much that costs.
I'm the second
Oh,
that.
but should that be a cost apportionment thing with those to know?
Well, definitely.
Oh, it will be, it certainly will be.
But not 50/50.
No.
Well, let's not go there, but to me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that would maybe fall in, that's like, to me, that's a no-brainer.
Agreed.
It's the first time I've heard that.
Me too.
It's been under consideration for,
It's in the CDF
A long,
studies
long
too,
time.
it's recommended. Part of the original waiver showed information about having it deeper, and that's when we did do a deeper one. So
This
now we're gonna
is
do a
deeper compared to what we had before.
Exactly.
Really? Okay.
Well, we have-
I mean, it
what
may
we had
have,
was a condition of the
so
waiver.
they'll do the study, they'll do the evaluations, the water group does the evaluations where the intake is, not necessarily, like, they don't just dip it in the top of the water then. So when they're determining whether
Right.
we keep our waiver.
We sample the deep hole now, and we know what the water quality is there, and we know it's better than where we get our water from now.
I'd say it's a no-brainer, to at least find out what it costs.
Yeah, what's it cost?
Then we gotta find out if Lewiston's willing to participate, and if they are, then we should,
If they're not,
If they're not, we just
we
extend
just
a
broadcast it.
2-foot pipe for us, at 4 million gallons a day.
Gets more complicated than that.
It's not that
but,
easy.
This is,
You know, I'll tell you, we're hiring a communication company to let everybody know that they don't want to participate.
Yeah.
No, we've had preliminary discussions. It's been on both of our plates for a long
I'm
time.
kidding.
Well,
It was a
last time I
joke.
know what happened, Lewiston fought us, right?
cleaning the
So
intake.
let's go step one, let's go step one. Can you do whatever needs to be done to determine how we would go about finding out what that costs? Can you do that first step and bring it back to us for next month? Or, Sid, if you.
Well, I think what it would take, we need to hire a consultant because there'd need to be some testing done. We need to do water testing, do some preliminary engineering. I think I'd like to, I'll be going over the budget. I think one of the things we're gonna put in, it's not in this draft budget, but I think one thing we do need to do is fund a study to look at extending that intake.
But it wouldn't be a hard time to find out, get a ballpark, because if it's gonna be cost prohibitive, don't pay for the study.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
So could we have a ballpark of what we might think it
I
would
think so,
cost?
yeah, we can come back to something.
yeah,
So
because
then-
I'm in favor of putting it in the budget. If we need to budget it, I think you'd get full approval.
How we do it and,
So what's the budget, what's the study gonna tell us that we don't already have a good idea on?
How far you need to extend it, what it's gonna cost to extend it, and what the benefits of extending it.
What kind of quality we get if we did it. Yeah. How you tie it in, I mean, there's a number of ways you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, could you stick like another pipe down through the intake and then snake it out there or something?
It might be totally redundant from the pipe we have.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's
I
the
don't
best
know
option?
I don't know if we extend it with an alternate intake or, I don't know, that's all
Yeah.
stuff that needs to be.
I mean, to
determined.
me, that's no brainer. I mean, that's worth.
I'd be curious to get an idea of the cost and then go forward with the rest of it too, but.
Okay. So that came up, so that's good, thank you. That's
Yeah,
water
sure.
quality,
That
that's a
would
great, that's a great piece of it.
But I also want to contact Lewiston to see if they're willing to pay for if they're gonna have a consultant.
Let's get through the existing things that we have going on.
I think that's, actually in Lewiston CIP, it has been funded in their long-term CIP, but it's never been brought up to their short-term. So it's something that's been on their
All right,
radar
cool.
as well.
Because
That's
that
good
could
to
start
know.
their budget process.
Can you reach out to Kevin?
Yep, certainly.
And just
Yep.
let him know that we bring this subject up and get a feel get a feel for the temperature and what his take is on it.
Yep, will do.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Good.
Okay. Next, Budget.
Budget, in your packet is the first draft of the 2023 operational budget. There, being the first draft, there are some things that are in good shape, and there are also some things that we don't quite have yet, but we will. We're planning on bringing you another draft at our meeting in November. Hopefully at that time, we'll have some more solid numbers for some things we don't know at the current time, but this is the month where we normally get this thing going. So I don't know how you want to do this, if you just want to give you an overview on some of the drivers of some of the things
Yeah,
that are in here.
please, give us
Okay.
your, where you're at and what needs to be done.
Okay, if you go to the first
Please.
page, the overall budget, those of you who have been around the longest know that we've got our revenues, we've got our expenditures, and from that, we subtract our bond payments. That gives us how much money we're in the black. We subtract our general equipment and our anticipated capital projects, and that determines how that changes our cash on hand after capital. So going right from the top of the page, what we normally do is take the revenue. To be conservative, we usually assume a 0% increase in growth. Of course, we hope we're going to have an increase in it, but for budgeting purposes, we assume a 0 increase in growth and usage, and we base that upon the projected total that we have for the year that we're in. So you'll see in 2023 what we've got there for projected income from metered sales, which includes residential, commercial, industrial, public authorities, and seasonal. Going down through our other sources of revenue, we've got rent on towers, interest income, merchandising, jobbing, fire protection, and other revenues. You can see the number we've got there, about a $4.38 million number. Then we get into the expenditures. One thing, the first number we've got there is payroll, so that's going to take just a minute to explain. As you know, we just went through a salary survey. We hired HR Main Consulting to do a salary survey for us. The last time we had this done was in 2018. That was done by Don Tyler Associates. At the time, what they did for us was took our existing, we have a existing pay grid, we have different classifications on our pay scale and different pay structures with a step scale. What we did back in 2018 was took that grid, simply added 6% to it, made a new grid out of it. What happened this time, just last week it came back, Maine HR Consulting did a salary survey, surveyed several different organizations, and came back with a suggested, she used our existing grid, but came back with a suggested starting wage, and instead of just doing a blanket 6%, this one had, based upon everyone else and what they were paying, took the starting wage, so those were kind of all over the place. So what I did was took that suggestion and made a new pay grid out of it. And doing that, put everybody at the step they should be, at the wage they're at, in the current job they're doing. So this study that was done was I think it's going to put us in a much better position moving forward, because after the last one we did, we still had some employees who were either above and beyond their pay scale, or some who were, a few were underpaid, some were overpaid, and it kind of made it a little clunky to administer because some people didn't get steps until the step scale caught up to their wage. Some people got bumps because they had to be elevated into the step they were supposed to be. But the way that this one was done, it truly puts everybody at the step they're supposed to be at. So this is going to be a much better pay plan moving forward. one thing that she found as a result of this salary survey, and once you plug I took everybody's wage, plugged it into this new wage scale, and this number that you've got here, this budget number reflects it. It's roughly a 9.5% increase over our existing wage scale. Once you plug everybody into this new wage scale, it doesn't affect everyone the same, but the average is a 9.5%. Some are a little less, some are a little over. So if this pay scale gets implemented, what I plan to do is, and it's the same thing I did back in 2018 when we had the last one implemented, I took everyone's individual situation, sat down with them, explained what it is and what this new pay scale was going to do for them. And so if this gets approved in this form, I will need to do the same thing for everyone this time, because it does, everyone will benefit, but it's a little bit different. One thing I also have included, if you look at the detail sheet of this, and talking with Betsy, as you all know, inflation has gone crazy. The consumer price index is like an 8.7% right now. Adjusting this wage scale to the suggested wage scale sort of takes care of the current CPI index, but it does nothing for the next fiscal year. Right after the study came out, one thing I always do every year is I check with all the existing water utilities that are comparable to us, you know, Augusta, Bangor, Portland, Kennebunk, Kennebec, which is the Waterville-Winslow area, and I see what they're going to be doing for their upcoming budgets. And a lot of them are going to be implementing this consumer price index into their wages at 8.7%, in some cases more. So what I proposed here puts us in line with other utilities at this time. What it doesn't do is address what it's going to be moving forward in 2023. As you recall, in our current budget, we've got a $3,200 retention bonus that we budgeted for, which was given to our employees on a quarterly basis. So to account for the consumer price index increase that we're looking at, in this budget, and this number includes a $2,000 retention bonus. So that would be paid out in 4 quarterly increments of $500. So that's what's included in this payroll number. It is an increase, but I hope I don't have to convince anyone how important it is to have our employees do what they do. If you look around at other utilities, they've got vacancies they can't fill. We've been very fortunate. We've got a very dedicated, hardworking crew, and we are hearing a lot of grumbling because our wages they haven't been touched since 2018, and they are simply not in line. We've got a lot of employees that live out of town. They've got to drive here every day. You know what's happened to gas prices. Our employees are really hurting wage-wise. So I'm hoping that I had this same meeting with Sewer last night. It's the same thing. So I'm hoping that this does get favorable review.
But you said doesn't take into account COLA.
It doesn't, and that's
it's
why.
It's a study and a retention bonus, so.
Right, and the reason I put it that.
And they're grumbling because last year we gave them $3,200 a piece, and they're grumbling.
It's their wages that are. I mean, the retention bonus I think was a critical element of keeping.
That's
our
why we
employees
did
where
it,
they are.
was to try and offset. We knew what was going to happen.
And it worked.
So now we're in trouble because they don't like the.
Well,
No,
no, I should
hey,
not.
Andy, you cannot change what's going on out there.
Yeah.
You cannot gripe, it's not, there's nothing anybody can do about it.
No,
So
no,
you're just gonna have to swallow it and accept it.
I will tell you, the employees appreciated the retention
nothing we
bonus.
can
But we're doing a retention bonus, we're not even taking COLA accounts, so next year, how are they gonna feel about that?
Well, let's see
Well,
what happens
that'll
by
be-
next
that'll be
year.
another
Everybody
year,
might
but-
be glad they got a job.
The reason I put that retention bonus in this year is because I know there's some sensitivity to affecting the base wages. And that's one way to keep the base wages where they are. And it can be decided year to year what's going on. I mean, if next year inflation comes down, consumer price index is down to a more traditional number, that's something that could be looked at that time.
True.
And by doing the retention bonus, you're not affecting base wages. So that's why I put that in.
It's just another idea, what if, we're doing $500 per quarter,
Right.
what if we did 800 like last time? And that would be the equivalent of last year's retention reward. And that would be kind of like a balance of the scale there. They're not getting COLA, but they're getting an average of 9.5 or 7, whatever percent. Some a little bit lower. That's an average. So that's like the equivalent of the cost of living rate.
Well,
And then if we gave them another 800, then that's going to be all tax deductible too, rather than 500. I'm just thinking, would that sweeten the pot a little bit for all the workers? Do we think doing 800 rather than 500? It's just an idea that.
I just think it's a management thing. If we're going up 9.5% on our payroll, and that doesn't do it, then it's a problem with the management of our employees. A 9.5% increase in your wages should be enough. That's 8.7% inflation number. 9.5% increase, and that's not enough?
What we're trying to do is make sure, and that's why we work so hard to check what other utilities are doing. I want to make sure that we're not, way above everyone else or way below them. And I think what I put here keeps us right in the middle.
That 500 retention bonus.
Yep.
That's
What I've
included
got.
in the 9.5% increase, right?
Yep.
It's using the retention bonus as opposed to an increase in their pay, which I agree with that to a point. I think that's a good idea this coming year, because if all of a sudden inflation goes to 3%, it won't, but if it did, then we could adjust the retention bonus.
Right, you're not gonna bring the pay scale down, I'd rather do it.
So, I mean, go along with that, I'm just saying,
Cost of living
because
increase.
Where's the,
One thing.
where's the 9.5%?
well, it's a little bit more than that. I think it's, you got 927,844 in 2022.
I'm looking at the payroll summary.
It is included in the base salary and wages. We took everybody's hourly rate and increased it to
Oh, I
the
see.
suggested.
1.08 to 1.13.
Since 2018.
Right.
Well, yeah, we did do it. Yeah, there was a salary study that was done, that was a substantial increase on top of COLA and everything else. That was not a salary.
Eight. That's 3%. That's 3 or 4%.
I was just
Yeah,
looking at
That's
the
not
That's
9%.
projected, if we do it by budgeted.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was looking at the front page.
well, if we're looking at, so on the payroll summary, we got our budgeted, but in actually what we're projecting it's actually gonna be is 1.08.
Projected is 1.08.
Is that's what we're, our best guesstimate is
Year end.
that that's what the year end is gonna be. So if we look at what we actually paid out to what we're budgeting, proposed budget for next year, that's only a 3.5% increase.
But that doesn't include the retention bonuses. So you're looking at the top number, you gotta look at the.
It does
The
include it.
projected does, Andy, because that's
Oh,
already
does?
been paid out, yes, so that is included in.
But
in
the
that
second number
projected.
doesn't. though.
The
The
proposed
The proposed
The
is
proposed does
not.
not include like the retention
Right.
bonus of 34,000.
And the potential
Projected.
retainer bonus is estimated at 34,000.
Right.
So that's a
So you're looking at the 108.
that's a 0.5%.
Yeah,
That's not
and
much.
that includes the COLA, that includes the.
And if we did what
retainer.
Bob said, that's gonna put it to 50,000 as opposed to 34 roughly.
Right.
Which is, I think, it
Which
it
is
looks like it's a
5%,
much bigger number, but
which
it's
is,
not that much more
And it's
money.
actually another 5% on top, 4% for argument, right? Am I right? Another 4% on top?
Right.
So then we're closer. With that, you're right, and then we're up to like, that's a 7 or 8% increase.
Now, that bonus is not added to the salary, right? That's a one-time deal?
It's not added to the base wage.
So,
Right, no,
so
that's-
that brings us, so it brings us in line with what we're actually gonna pay out. It puts us about an 8% increase, with 3 of it being what we're actually gonna pay out. 3% of that's gonna be wage increase, and 4% of that would be a bonus.
Well,
Or four,
I was just looking at
rough
the
numbers.
front page, I always.
Well, I'm just, Andy,
What's the bonus you don't, if things improve and inflation goes down, gas prices go down, that's something you don't have to do. the
What you
following
said.
year.
What you said, it's an option.
That's the idea of separating it out, I kinda like that idea.
This is something to
Yeah.
help cover.
but I'm looking at,
additional
but
costs that
he
are-
was saying we're already talking it's a 9 or 10% increase in last year, but it's actually not. That's off the budgeted number, yes. But if you look on the payroll summary, what our actual is,
Yep.
you'll see,
Well, when payroll summary says projected 1.098, but.
1.080.
1.1, no, you gotta take the bottom line total, or,
yeah, okay, yeah,
the
yeah.
top one doesn't include, the.
So it's another 100,000 on top, which is about,
9.5%. You got 1.98 or 1.195, you're almost $100,000 more, that's 9.5%.
that's with the bonus, yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's
figured in
with the
this,
bonuses.
retention bonus, right?
Right,
So I'm
okay,
saying
yeah.
9.5%'s not enough. We
Right.
gotta look at what's going on, because we're now a point above a huge
So if
number,
we, but if we're,
8.7%.
so if we're talking about Bob's addition, let's say just for argument's sake, right, I agree with you, I agree with what you're saying principally, it's not that much in that number.
But the problem with what's going on is you can go to 20 places in this city alone where you can make 25 to 30 bucks an hour. Whereas opposed to here, we have one vacant position on the sewer side. I'm trying to hire somebody at 18 bucks an hour. Oh, and by the way, you got to pee in a cup, and it doesn't go over very well.
Well,
That's why we haven't filled it.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. That's why we've got to get that base wage up. We've got to get in line with everybody else so we can offer an attractive. What we did last year worked. Knock on wood, we lost 0 people in water, and it worked. We weathered that storm. And
What's that position that's open? You can't-
it's a sewer operator. We advertised twice, we interviewed 3 or 4, and what we got for applicants, it just really, it's really tough trying to hire somebody right now.
Is that kind of like basic labor?
Like you
That's
said,
a basic position, sewer operator.
you can go anywhere and make 20,
Yeah.
I mean, they're starting at $18 an hour, McDonald's
Right.
on shifts. It's crazy.
So vote,
But
I
that can
guess,
change very quickly.
Yeah, so,
just moving on,
Yeah.
next line down, one thing we were very fortunate to have this year, remember last year, this was sort of unprecedented for us with the health insurance we have. Last year, we were fortunate to get a 0% increase in our health insurance. This year, lightning struck twice, we were able to get this year at a 0% health insurance increase.
Wow, nice.
So that was a very, very good thing that's gonna help our.
Now explain why it went up,
What's that?
the projected to the budget went up.
Because there are other things in that account, there's FICA, there's
Okay.
our match for
Right, okay.
retirement comes out of that account as well. So if wages go up, our match for the retirement goes up. So that's why that's reflected in that number.
The admin fee breaks that down, Andy, a little more.
So the retained bonus is gonna stay at 5?
we haven't gotten there yet, this is just an overview,
We'll have plenty more time to talk about it.
The other things in there, you'll see a large increase, I just wanted to point it out, UV treatment plant. I think I've mentioned this in some of our monthly meetings we've had, the price of chemicals. Poor Chris Curtis is pulling his hair out up there at the UV plant. Chemicals are a challenge to say the least. There's been supply issues. We've had problems even getting fluoride at times, but he's worked incredibly hard, beating the bushes to make sure we get the chemicals we need. But chemicals are going up, and that's what's the main driver of that number that you see
There
there.
are some chemicals that are more important than the fluoride though, right? I mean,
True.
that's an additive that if you didn't put in, it's not necessary for the purity of the water.
It would mean an adjustment to other chemicals, but you're right. If we did not get fluoride, that would be.
Water's just gonna be the same quality, as good quality.
But all the other chemicals, they're going up, and he's doing the best he can to secure the best contracts.
And this budget reflects that anticipated increase.
Right, right. The other numbers are reflected in the backup schedules. Those are pretty much in line. You will see under administration, that has gone up. That's the primary driver for that is the legal expenses that we anticipate. There's other things down, everything else is pretty much in line. Watershed protection has a little bump in it. That again is due to the anticipated legal expenses that are coming their way, as well as a little bit more funding into the sinking fund.
Now, explain this, it's 85,000.
Yep.
But then when you look at the watershed budget, Auburn's 60 and Lewiston is 60,000. So where does that other 15,000 coming in?
It's in there, let me see.
Is there something else besides our contribution, 50/50 contribution?
Nope, that's it. If you look down at the bottom,
Is it, yeah, 85 it says, because water source operations 60,
Is that the sinking fund
25.
contribution on top?
yeah, the operations is 60, the sinking fund is 25,000, so that's how you get your 85. But it's the same thing for Lewiston. This is a 50/50 deal, so it's been funded that way, the watershed protection.
Source water protections, what does that mean again?
Sinking fund, that's the money that's put in every year for property purchase or any
Okay.
special account.
And then when they've got,
Okay, go ahead, I'll go ahead.
the other question I had was when I talked about fund balance carry forward. So, there's 60 from Auburn, 60 from Lewiston, they're carrying forward 88,000. So total revenues is 212 against the 167 budget. So they call that fund balance a revenue?
That's to
It's a fund balance, it's not a revenue.
right, that's to make the numbers even. The expenditures match the revenues.
Total expense is 167, that doesn't include this so-called purchase of land or whatever.
Yeah, that's separate. That number's not recorded here, and that's one thing I was hoping.
See what that account looks like.
Right, we dump into it every year to have it adequately funded, but that's something I would like to see reported at every meeting is the actual sinking fund balance. We always get it if we need it, but I'd like to see it reported. One thing I don't have here yet. Whoops, go ahead. Yep.
On the same page, can we
Yep.
stay there? On
Yep.
page 6, watershed protection. Expenditures, very top, fourth one down. Source protection management, more than doubled for next year.
Yeah, it's the same as the budgeted amount, we just did not, we're looking at
Okay, you
anticipated.
budgeted, but you only use 30, but this is we may use up to 63.
That position was vacant for a good portion of last year. The education and outreach.
Yeah, if you look, it went down. I mean, from the year before, it was almost
41 to 30, yeah, good point. A little farther down, 5 more down, public education. That took quite a jump there, 26.6 to 41.1. It's 11,000, whatever, something like that. But that just looked like, why are we spending another over $10,000 in public education?
I would need to
That would
go
be
back
all
to
the
the
activities,
detail sheet.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a detail sheet, a
So
detailed
that if you
breakdown
could,
of
for
this
the next
amount.
budget,
I can get
this
that.
is
That'd be
just a,
interesting.
Yeah, I
let's
can get that.
figure out what that is, great.
And then a couple more, capital expenditures halfway down, forestry management plan, $20,000.
Right,
Now, if we go down under revenue, sale of timber assets is projected at $2,000. So we got a plan that's gonna cost $20,000, and we're gonna sell timber, we're only gonna get
Every
10% of it?
Every 10 years, we've done a forestry management plan. We did one in 2000, well, it was 20 years ago, we had one done by Jones Associates. The last one was done back in 2013, so now it's 10 years. Every 10 years, we update that forestry management plan.
Okay, so that's the
Yeah,
cost, every 10 years we do that, and then.
And that's usually covered, that might be covered by a grant as well, I'm not sure yet, but that's the whole.
Yeah, and so that sale of timber is irrelevant relative to that, there's no connection. No.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it, Sid.
You were gonna say something else.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say is, one thing not included in this equipment is just put a placeholder in there. Mike and I are working on getting you a equipment list, so you'll see it, you'll have that next month. But that's just a number in there as a placeholder, as well as the capital. We have not fully developed the capital plan yet, which is not technically part of this budget. As you know, the capital is approved on every project is approved as it comes forward, but we will develop a list for you for capital projects for next year.
Well, that brings me to my final couple of questions. One of them is, it looks like we got a huge increase in capital expenditures. Is that doing 2 miles of pipe?
Right now, that's our projected to do.
So we went from 800,000 to 1.4 million because of inflation, and now we're going to
$2 million.
almost double it. For more inflation, or what's the scoop? I mean, I understand.
It's just the cost of doing, we're looking at what we're paying right now to put pipe in the ground. Just the cost of everything has gone
I know
up,
that.
and that's where we're at between the fuel, the pipe, the gravel, everything's just costing double, it seems.
Yeah, kinda
Quick question, for Mike and Sid, the cold storage garage, is that something we could budget, just like in phases?
We plan to, again, we just have a placeholder number in there, but one thing we'd like to do next year is do basically a preliminary design or like a plan, sit down and figure out what do we really need.
Right.
And then, kind of
So
get
we can
that-
always stage it off too.
Right, so.
We don't
Okay,
have to-
let's not go that around.
So that's, I mean, obviously, I'd just like to see, it's $200 a square, is it $200 a foot?
That's what we're carrying in there, that's what we put in, right?
Yeah, this year we budgeted 130. Yeah, but Mike's right, it's going up.
That's
200 look low.
The other thing is, well, I was gonna say, we really can't pause because it's too expensive, because we have people already on board. We can't just pause. I mean,
Pause what?
well, I mean, I just can't believe that kind of pricing is gonna be sustainable, it's gonna continue.
None of this is sustainable.
That's what I mean. It is.
Like, the whole world's not sustainable,
Right, so
so I
something's
mean,
gonna change.
what are we gonna do? That's what it costs next year.
And the other, last question I had was on the bond, the last one, the $2 million. I didn't know we were paying 3%.
Yep.
I thought we
Yeah,
had,
we're not-
thought we were
Well, it's
talking
because
about-
it's because we waited
Dilly
9 months to
dally.
do it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's still at interest
Still.
rates right now.
Still.
Well, it's still a deal, but, yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't do it when we wanted to do it, we did it later.
So we see
again-
updates on this as time goes
Throw
on.
that money in a
Yep.
bond right now and get
So
4%.
Next month, November,
Really?
we look to have a
It's probably getting 3%.
approval-ready budget for you next month.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll look at.
Any trustees have anything else to say? Trustee open session. We had the water committee, we had the alternate water source report already.
Pretty much,
We already
just
had
we
the-
a couple
we already-
emails exchanged, and we're gonna get some more data from Mike and Sid, and we're gonna
Okay.
email and set up a meeting.
Trustee open session. Motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. All adjourned. All in favor? You're adjourned.
Take it out at 5:45.
Not bad.